November 16th, 2025. Just after dawn, Japanese radar operators spot an unidentified object streaking towards Yonaguni, a sliver of territory only 110 kilometers from Taiwan. Within 3 minutes, warplanes are airborne, confronting a suspected Chinese drone probing deep into Japan's most sensitive defense corridor. The drama did not end in the skies. The aftermath sparked a political firestorm, missile deployments, and brought Tokyo and Beijing to the brink. But why did one drone flight trigger such global consequences, and what secret evidence changed everything? At 9:16 Japan Standard Time, the Southwest Air Defense Command picked up an unidentified contact on radar, moving steadily toward the airspace west of Yonaguni. The object's flight profile was unusual: low speed, no transponder, and a direct approach that set off immediate alarms in the operations center. Within minutes, a second track appeared, shadowing the first but holding a less predictable course. Radar operators flagged both as probable unmanned aerial vehicles, prompting a rapid threat assessment and escalation to senior command. By 9:27, the scramble order was issued at Naha Air Base. 2 F-15J fighters, already on alert, were directed to intercept. JASDF pilots raced through their pre-flight checks, engines roaring to life as ground crews cleared the way. According to official doctrine, the goal is to be airborne within 3 minutes of the order, and today every second counted. AWACS surveillance aircraft provided a live picture of the evolving situation, relaying updates as the fighters climbed out over the East China Sea. At 9:33, the pilots reported visual contact 9 nautical miles west of Yonaguni. Through the cockpit canopy, they spotted a large medium-altitude drone, a distinctive silhouette, broad wings, and the telltale profile of a modern reconnaissance platform. The aircraft bore no markings visible from this distance, but its size and flight behavior suggested a People's Liberation Army model, likely a GJ-2 or a similar class. The fighters maintained a standoff distance, shadowing the drone while recording infrared and optical imagery for later analysis. Radio hails went unanswered. There was no attempt at evasion, nor any aggressive move, just a slow, deliberate transit through the corridor. At 9:42, both unidentified contacts altered course, heading back toward the boundary of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. The withdrawal was swift but controlled, leaving no doubt that the probe was over for now. On the ground, Yonaguni residents described the sudden roar of jets overhead, a brief glimpse of a slow-moving aircraft at altitude, and then silence. In less than half an hour, the incident had unfolded, logged in radar tracks and cockpit tapes, evidence that would soon become the centerpiece of a national security debate. For JASDF crews, the tempo was relentless: detect, scramble, intercept, document, and prepare for whatever came next. Yonaguni sits at the westernmost edge of Japan, a small island just 110 kilometers from Taiwan. Its location places it at the crossroads of Asia's sharpest security fault lines. The narrow corridor of water and air between Yonaguni and Taiwan has become a pressure point, watched closely by military planners in Tokyo, Beijing, and Washington. For Japan, this space is more than a border. It is the front line of national defense, a place where any incursion, even by an unmanned aircraft, carries outsized meaning. The area's sensitivity is rooted in both geography and history. In 2012, Japan's government nationalized the Senkaku Islands just north of Yonaguni, igniting a new phase of confrontation with China. The move triggered a surge in Chinese Coast Guard patrols and maritime militia presence, turning the waters around Yonaguni into a zone of near-constant surveillance and contest. By 2013, China declared its own air defense identification zone over the East China Sea, overlapping Japanese claims and setting the stage for regular intercepts and diplomatic standoffs. Security experts describe these encounters as classic examples of gray zone tactics, actions that test the resolve of rivals without crossing the threshold into open conflict. Drones and Coast Guard ships become tools for signaling intent, gauging response times, and mapping the limits of patience on both sides. Each probe forces Japanese commanders to make rapid decisions, knowing that a slow or weak response could invite further pressure, while an overly aggressive move risks escalation. Japan's approach to these challenges has evolved. In 2015, the government reinterpreted Article 9 of its constitution, allowing for collective self-defense and paving the way for a more active military posture. This shift was not just theoretical. Over the past decade, Japan has steadily increased its deployments to the southwest, building up radar sites, missile batteries, and airfields on islands like Yonaguni, Ishigaki, and Miyako. The corridor's proximity to Taiwan and the disputed Senkaku Islands means that that any incident here reverberates far beyond local waters, drawing in the interests of the United States and shaping alliance policy. Regional security scholars point out that every incident in the Yonaguni corridor is scrutinized for what it reveals about the balance of power. The November 2025 drone probe did not occur in a vacuum. It was the latest in a series of moves and countermoves that have redefined the region's security architecture. The decision to release evidence of the intercept and the rapid policy debates that followed can only be understood against this backdrop, a corridor where the stakes are measured not just in miles, but in the credibility of deterrence itself. Inside the Ministry of Defense, the aftermath of the Yonaguni intercept triggered urgent debate. Senior analysts pored over radar logs, infrared captures, and cockpit recordings, assembling a dossier that traced the drone's approach, the fighter's intercept, and the withdrawal toward Taiwan's air defense identification zone. The evidence included time-stamped radar tracks and grainy, high-contrast optical stills, enough to support a public narrative, but not enough for unequivocal attribution. The decision to release this material did not come easily. Within the Ministry of Defense, intelligence and operations officers argued for restraint, warning that publicizing sensor data could expose detection thresholds and response patterns to adversaries. Legal advisors raised questions about national security secrecy laws, scrutinizing which data types could be disclosed without violating statutory limits. Meanwhile, foreign ministry officials worried about diplomatic fallout, especially with ongoing alliance talks and the risk of escalation with Beijing. The debate over release balanced operational security against political and diplomatic costs. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's office pressed for transparency, insisting that public release was necessary to galvanize domestic support and reassure international partners. In a late-night cabinet session, the National Security Secretariat sided with the Prime Minister, framing the incident as an opportunity to shape public opinion and demonstrate resolve. United States advisors, consulted through liaison channels, urged caution, favoring a limited release to avoid revealing operational secrets, but ultimately they deferred to Tokyo's political calculus. Transparency remained the political priority. By the afternoon of November 16th, the government authorized the publication of select radar images and intercept timelines. The official statement described a suspected Chinese military drone, careful to use qualified language and avoid direct escalation. The dossier, released to domestic and foreign media, set the stage for the diplomatic and policy battles that followed. Authorized publication turned the technical record into a diplomatic instrument. Within hours of Tokyo's release, Beijing summoned Japan's ambassador and delivered a formal protest. The statement accused Japan of fabricating evidence, sensationalizing the incident, and threatening regional stability. Chinese diplomats insisted the drone was conducting routine operations in international airspace, warning that further Japanese provocations would not go unanswered. State media and PLA-linked outlets amplified this message, with headlines declaring that any hostile interference would invite severe countermeasures. One editorial in PLA Daily warned that Japan was risking disaster by drawing foreign powers into the East China Sea, vowing that the Chinese military stood ready to defend its sovereignty by any means necessary. The diplomatic clash reverberated through Tokyo's political corridors. In the National Diet, lawmakers from the ruling coalition seized on the incident to push for accelerated missile deployments across the Southwest Islands. Citing the Yonaguni probe as a wake-up call, the Defense Committee convened emergency hearings. Transcripts show repeated references to the need for operational deterrence, not just policy rhetoric. On November 24th, the Diet passed Bill 210, authorizing new ground-launched missile batteries for Yonaguni, Ishigaki, and Miyako. The defense budget was swiftly amended, allocating over 90 billion yen for procurement and infrastructure. Cabinet Order Number 317 followed, revising rules of engagement to allow warning fire against unmanned aerial incursions if radio hails failed. Local reaction in Okinawa was divided. Some council members warned of creeping militarization and the risk of escalation, while others called for stronger defenses to protect residents from external threats. Security analysts pointed to the incident as a turning point, one that not only justified Japan's missile deployments, but also prompted United States and Japanese planners to adjust the scope of upcoming alliance drills, placing new emphasis on rapid counter-drone response. Each new probe redraws the boundaries of deterrence in Asia's most volatile corridor. As Japan accelerates missile deployments and China sharpens its warnings, the threshold for miscalculation narrows. In this tense calculus, the margin for error is shrinking, while the world watches, holding its breath. What's your take?